The church was silent except for the slow, heavy echo of footsteps on the marble floor. Vivian Cole sat in the front row, her hands trembling as she clutched the folded handkerchief Jonathan used to keep in his suit pocket. 42 years of marriage now reduced to a wooden box at the altar. The smell of lilies filled the air, but to Vivian, it felt suffocating. Every breath reminded her that she was alone now. Family and friends filled the pews behind her. Some whispered, some cried, but most watched her with the quiet pity people always give a widow. She tried not to look at them. Her eyes stayed fixed on Jonathan's coffin. Inside, she imagined, he was still wearing the navy suit he always wore for family gatherings. He had looked handsome even in the funeral parlor, and that memory kept replaying in her mind. Her son, Nathan, stood by her side. Tall, handsome, but with an impatient expression that didn't belong at a funeral. He hadn't spoken much to her all morning. When people offered condolences, Nathan simply nodded, avoiding their eyes. His wife, Sophie, never left his side. Sophie's hand was looped through his arm tightly, almost possessively. As the pastor began his final words, Vivian lowered her head, fighting back the tears. But in that moment, a small movement caught her attention. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Nathan step forward toward the coffin. At first, she thought he was reaching out to touch it, maybe to say a final goodbye. Instead, his hand slipped casually into the inner pocket of Jonathan's jacket. His shoulders shifted slightly, and when he pulled his hand back out, she saw the glint of something metallic, the brass key to their household safe. Vivian's heart stopped. The safe wasn't just any box. It held Jonathan's will, the jewelry passed down through generations, and deeds to the land they had built their life on. It wasn't money alone, it was their family's entire history. She froze in her seat, staring at Nathan as he slipped the key into his palm, then quietly tucked it into his trouser pocket. He didn't look at her. He didn't look at anyone. He just stepped back beside Sophie, whose lips curled into the faintest, satisfied smile. Vivian felt her throat tighten. The pastor's voice faded. She wanted to scream, to demand that Nathan return what he had taken, but the silence of the church pressed against her like a weight. Was she imagining it? Was her grief clouding her mind? But no, she knew that key as well as she knew her own wedding ring. As the service ended, people rose slowly, heading toward the casket to say their final goodbyes. Vivian stood, still shaken, and turned to Nathan. His eyes met hers for a second, and she saw it there, guilt quickly masked with defiance. By the time they returned home for the reception, her hands still hadn't stopped trembling. Guests filled the living room, speaking softly, holding plates of food they didn't really want to eat. Vivian stood near the fireplace, Jonathan's photo above it, his eyes smiling at her in the picture as if urging her to stay strong. Nathan moved around the room, avoiding her gaze. Sophie stayed close to him, whispering in his ear every now and then, her painted nails brushing against his sleeve. Vivian couldn't take it anymore. Her grief mixed with anger until it boiled over. "Nathan," she said loudly enough for the room to hear. Conversations around them fell quiet. "You took the safe key from your father's pocket. Give it back." The hush was immediate. Every guest turned, eyes darting between mother and son. Nathan's face drained of color, then flushed red. "What are you talking about?" he said, his voice sharp. "Mom, you're not thinking clearly. You've been through too much today." Vivian's voice shook, but she didn't back down. "I saw you, Nathan. I saw you take it." Gasps rippled across the room. Sophie stepped forward quickly, her expression twisted with practiced sympathy. "Vivian, please, you're upset. You must have imagined it. Nathan would never do that." Vivian looked around the room, searching for support, but she saw hesitation in every face. People exchanged glances, murmuring to each other. Some nodded as if Sophie's explanation made sense. Her chest felt heavy. She had spent her entire life raising her son, teaching him right from wrong, believing he would carry Jonathan's values. Now here she was, standing in her own living room, accused of being confused, of being weak, while the truth sat in Nathan's pocket. Nathan leaned closer, lowering his voice just for her. "Mom, drop this. Don't embarrass yourself." Tears burned Vivian's eyes, but she swallowed hard. "I will not drop it. Jonathan trusted me, and I will not let you betray him in front of his coffin." The silence was unbearable. No one moved. Sophie's grip on Nathan's arm tightened. He smirked slightly, almost daring her to push further. Vivian's knees felt weak. She turned and sat back down, her heart pounding in her ears. She had spoken, but she realized something terrifying. No one believed her. And worse, Nathan knew it. The room never returned to normal after Vivian's outburst. Conversations picked back up, but they were quiet, forced, like whispers in a courtroom. People avoided her eyes, focusing on their plates or sipping tea as if nothing had happened. Only Harper Lane, her niece, offered her a faint, worried look from across the room. Vivian sat near the fireplace, staring at Jonathan's photo. Her late husband's steady smile mocked the chaos unfolding around her. All she could think about was that key, small, cold brass, now hidden in Nathan's pocket. As the evening stretched on, the house emptied slowly. Relatives gave her stiff hugs, muttered condolences, and walked out the door without once mentioning the confrontation. When the last guest left, the house grew unbearably quiet. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway sounded louder than ever. Nathan and Sophie remained, of course. They lingered as if the house already belonged to them. Sophie helped herself to another glass of wine, her heels clicking on the hardwood as she moved through the living room. Nathan sat on the couch, leaning back with his arms stretched, looking like a man at ease, not one accused of theft. Vivian's chest tightened. "I won't pretend I didn't see what I saw," she said finally, her voice trembling. Nathan sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Mom, please. You're grieving. You think you saw me take something, but you didn't. Do you really want to embarrass yourself more?" "Embarrass myself?" she shot back. Her voice cracked, but her anger gave her strength. "You embarrassed this family when you reached into your dead father's pocket." Sophie stepped in, her tone sugary but sharp underneath. "Vivian, think about your health. Stress isn't good for you. Jonathan would have wanted Nathan to take care of things. It's natural." "Natural?" Vivian's laugh came out hollow. "To steal behind my back? To betray me on the day I buried him?" The silence between them was thick, heavy with tension. Nathan stood up and leaned close, lowering his voice. "The safe has always been about responsibility, Mom. Dad trusted me with things. You wouldn't understand how to handle it all." The words cut deep, like he had carved her out of her own life. Before Vivian could reply, Harper appeared in the doorway. She had stayed behind to help clean up, but now she stood frozen, watching. Her eyes darted between Nathan and Vivian, and then settled on Sophie's smirk. Harper didn't say anything, but Vivian saw it. She had noticed too. Later that night, after Nathan and Sophie finally left, Harper helped stack dishes in the kitchen. The house felt too big now, every room echoing with Jonathan's absence. Harper placed a hand on her aunt's shoulder. "I believe you," she said softly. Vivian's throat tightened with relief, though her voice still shook. "They all think I'm losing my mind." "You're not," Harper said firmly. "I saw Sophie. The way she looked at Nathan. They know exactly what they're doing." Vivian closed her eyes, exhaustion weighing on her. But then, as Harper reached up to adjust Jonathan's framed photo on the wall, something shifted. The photo tilted slightly, and behind it, a small, yellowed envelope slipped free, landing on the mantel. "What's this?" Harper asked, handing it to her. Vivian's hands trembled as she tore it open. Inside was a spare key, identical to the one Nathan had taken. And with it, a note in Jonathan's handwriting. Her breath caught as she read. "Vivian, if anything ever happens and you feel lost, remember this. Trust what you see, not what they say. Keep this safe. You'll know when to use it." Tears spilled down her cheeks. Her late husband had known. He had anticipated something, maybe even Nathan's greed. He had left her this quiet lifeline. Harper's eyes widened as she recognized the significance. "It's the safe key," she whispered. Vivian nodded, clutching it tightly in her palm. The weight of it grounded her, gave her a flicker of strength she thought she had lost. That night, the house was silent except for the creaks of old wood and the faint hum of the refrigerator. Vivian sat in Jonathan's study with the key pressed to her chest. She replayed Nathan's smirk, Sophie's cold words, and the doubtful stares from her own family. Tomorrow, she decided she would open the safe. She would see with her own eyes what Jonathan had left behind, and why Nathan wanted it so badly. But deep in her heart, she also knew something else. Whatever she found inside would not just change her life. It would expose who Nathan truly was, and once revealed, nothing would ever be the same again. Vivian turned off the light, but she couldn't sleep. She held Jonathan's letter under her pillow, whispering his words in the dark. "Trust what you see, not what they say." And for the first time since the funeral, she felt a spark of hope. The morning light crept through the curtains, painting soft lines across the wooden floor of Jonathan's study. Vivian hadn't slept. She sat at the edge of her bed all night, holding the brass key Jonathan had hidden away and repeating his words. Trust what you see, not what they say. By dawn, her decision was made. She would open the safe. The house was quiet. Harper had stayed overnight in the guest room, unwilling to leave Vivian alone. As Vivian walked down the hallway, her footsteps echoed in the silence. Each step toward the safe felt heavier, as though Jonathan himself was watching. The safe was tucked in the corner of Jonathan's office, behind the heavy oak desk he had used for decades. Vivian knelt down, her hands trembling as she slid the key into the lock. For a moment, her chest tightened with fear. Fear of what she might find, fear of what Nathan had been desperate to take. The lock clicked. The door opened. Inside, she saw stacks of neatly organized folders, sealed envelopes, and 2 velvet boxes. At the very top sat another envelope marked simply, Vivian. Her breath caught. She reached for it with shaking fingers, sat back in Jonathan's old leather chair, and unfolded the letter inside. My dearest Vivian, if you are reading this, I am no longer by your side. I know Nathan too well, his temper, his impatience, his pride. I fear he may try to take what he believes is his. That is why I prepared everything in this safe under your name. The deeds, the accounts, the heirlooms, they are all legally yours. Protect them. Protect yourself. And remember, my love, you were always the heart of this family. Not me, not Nathan, you. Tears streamed down Vivian's cheeks as she pressed the paper to her chest. Jonathan had known. He had anticipated everything. He hadn't left her defenseless. Harper appeared in the doorway, her face pale but curious. Aunt Vivian, did you find something? Vivian handed her the letter. Harper read silently, her lips pressing into a thin line as her eyes darted across Jonathan's words. When she finished, she exhaled slowly. He gave it all to you. Vivian nodded, wiping her tears. And Nathan doesn't know. That's why he wanted the key. He thought he could take control before I did. They looked back at the safe. Inside were property deeds stamped in Vivian's name, bank statements showing accounts transferred months before Jonathan's death, and detailed notes of payments Jonathan had secretly made to cover Nathan's debts. Vivian's hands shook as she flipped through them. She saw credit card balances, failed investments, and loans tied to Nathan's name. Every page told the same story. Her son had been reckless, and Jonathan had been cleaning up his mess quietly for years. In one folder, Jonathan had written notes in the margin. Sophie is pushing him. Watch her influence. Vivian's stomach sank. Sophie wasn't just standing by Nathan's side. She was feeding his greed. The silence was broken by the shrill ring of the house phone. Vivian startled, nearly dropping the papers. She picked it up with hesitation. Mrs. Cole, a male voice asked. This is Mr. Bradley, the notary. I wanted to confirm. Did you authorize Sophie Cole to file for a property transfer yesterday morning? She brought papers claiming you had signed them. Vivian's hand froze. No, she said firmly. I never signed anything. There was a pause. Then you should know those documents were fraudulent. We're holding them until this is resolved. I thought you should be aware. Vivian's knees nearly gave out. Sophie had tried to forge her signature. Even before the funeral was over, she was already plotting to strip everything away. Harper rushed to her side as she hung up, her face pale. Aunt Vivian, this is worse than we thought. Vivian gripped Jonathan's letter tightly. The anger inside her was no longer mixed with grief. It was sharp, clear. She saw everything now. Nathan hadn't just stolen the key out of desperation. He had been planning it with Sophie, and they had almost gotten away with it. The sound of a car door slammed outside, breaking the moment. Vivian moved to the window and saw Nathan and Sophie stepping out, dressed sharply, as if they had business to attend to. Sophie's arm looped around Nathan's, her face set with determination. They're coming back, Harper whispered. Vivian closed the safe and locked it with the spare key, slipping Jonathan's letter into her blouse. For the first time since Jonathan's death, her grief gave way to resolve. When Nathan and Sophie entered the house minutes later, their voices filled the hallway. Sophie spoke first, her tone falsely sweet. Vivian, we need to discuss the estate. It's best if Nathan takes charge now. Vivian stood tall, the letter pressed to her chest. Her tears had dried. Her voice was calm, but steady as iron. No, she said. It's time we all discuss the truth. The air in the house shifted. Harper stood behind her aunt like a shadow, ready to support her. Nathan froze, confusion flashing across his face. Sophie's confident smile flickered. Vivian knew this was just the beginning. The safe had given her the truth, and soon, the entire family would see it. The living room was quiet, heavy with tension, as Nathan and Sophie stepped inside. They carried themselves like they already owned the house. Sophie's perfume lingered in the air as she draped her coat over the sofa, her smile rehearsed and sharp. Vivian stood near the fireplace, Jonathan's letter tucked close to her heart. Harper stayed at her side, her arms crossed, her eyes cold as she watched Nathan and Sophie make themselves comfortable. Sophie was the first to speak, her voice honeyed but forceful. "Vivian, let's be reasonable. Nathan is your son. He should take care of the safe, the deeds, the money. It's what Jonathan would have wanted," Nathan added, his tone dripping with condescension. "Mom, you can't handle all of this. It's too much for you. Just let me take over." Vivian looked at them both, her lips trembling, but she did not cry. "Too much for me?" she asked softly. Her voice carried the weight of decades, of being a wife, a mother, the quiet strength behind Jonathan's life. "I buried my husband 2 days ago. I sat through this funeral while you stole from his pocket. And now, you come here and dare tell me I can't handle what's mine." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Yours." Vivian took a step forward, pulling Jonathan's letter from her blouse. "Yes. Mine." She unfolded the paper and read aloud. Jonathan's words filled the room, every line echoing through the silence. "Vivian, everything in the safe is yours alone. Nathan may try to take control, but trust what you see. The deeds, the accounts, the heirlooms, they belong to you." When she finished, the room was still. Nathan's face turned pale. Sophie's eyes widened, then narrowed quickly, as though searching for a new angle. "That letter doesn't mean anything," Sophie said sharply. "It could be fake." "It's not," Harper cut in, her voice steady. She stepped forward and dropped a stack of papers onto the table. Deeds, bank statements, documents signed months earlier. "Everything is already in Aunt Vivian's name." Jonathan made sure of it. The color drained from Sophie's face. She looked at Nathan, but he couldn't speak. His mouth opened, then closed again, as if the truth had stolen his voice. Vivian's hand shook slightly as she placed the letter on the table. "Jonathan knew. He saw your debts, Nathan. He saw Sophie pushing you into loans and schemes. He saved this family from being destroyed by your greed." Nathan's chest rose and fell quickly. "You don't understand," he muttered. "I was trying to build something. Sophie believed in me. I just needed a chance." "A chance?" Vivian's voice hardened. "You took that chance by stealing from your father's coffin. You forged my name. And you let your wife convince you that I was weak enough to be pushed aside." Sophie's mask finally cracked. She snapped, "So what now? You think you'll just sit on everything while Nathan suffers? You'll let him rot while you hoard what should be his." Vivian's eyes didn't leave hers. What belongs to Nathan, Jonathan already prepared. He left a trust in Nathan's name. But it has rules. Strict ones. Nathan's head jerked up. "A trust?" "Yes," Vivian said. "Jonathan left you a way forward. But you'll only receive it if you repay your debts, stay clear of fraud, and earn back trust. Not just mine, but this family's. Until then, Sophie has no claim here." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan's shoulders sagged as though the fight had drained out of him. Sophie, however, exploded. "You can't do this. You can't just cut me out." She grabbed her bag, her face twisted with fury. "Come on, Nathan. We don't need this." But Nathan didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on his mother, guilt filling them. "She's right," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I messed up. Dad knew, and now Mom knows." For the first time, Sophie's grip on him faltered. She stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Nathan stood there, trembling, his pride broken. He turned to Vivian, his voice low. "I'm sorry, Mom. I wanted to be the man Dad was. I thought taking control would prove it. But I only proved him right. I can't be trusted." Vivian's eyes softened, but she didn't step forward. She had spent her life forgiving, overlooking mistakes. But now she drew a line. "You are my son, Nathan. I will always love you. But love doesn't mean blind trust. If you want to earn your father's legacy, you'll do it by his rules. Not by Sophie's lies." Nathan lowered his head. Tears clung to his lashes, but he didn't argue. For the first time, he looked like the little boy who once reached for her hand when he was scared. Not the arrogant man who thought the world owed him everything. Vivian placed Jonathan's letter back into the safe, locked it, and slipped the key into her pocket. She turned to Harper, who had stood silently, watching every second. Harper's eyes were filled with admiration and pride. That night, when the house finally grew quiet again, Vivian sat in Jonathan's study with the key resting on the desk. She thought about everything: her husband's wisdom, Nathan's betrayal, Sophie's greed, and the family who had doubted her at the funeral. For the first time in days, she didn't feel broken. She felt strong. Jonathan had trusted her, and she had proven he was right. The safe was closed. The boundaries were set. And though her heart still ached, Vivian knew one thing. She was no longer just Jonathan's widow. She was the matriarch of the Cole family now. And she would guard their future with everything she had.